So we're now recording. So hopefully Alicia will join us momentarily. But in the meantime, why don't we do roll call for approval of the previous meeting?
Okay. Alicia's not here. Michael?
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan?
She's not here either.
Eric Diaz? Eric, I see you. Eric?
Eric, hit the space bar to unmute yourself. Or click the microphone. I can't unmute you.
All right, I'll come back to Eric. Herman Hewitt?
Not here.
Anisha Stephen?
Yes.
Mei Lee?
Yes.
Jackie Wong?
Yes.
Yes, sorry about that, yes.
Okay, gotcha, Eric. Linda Jones?
Yes.
Alex Militano?
Yes.
Trevor Holland?
Yes.
Paul Rangel?
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan? Oh, she's connecting to audio.
Lisa Kaplan, you just made attendance. Say yes to approve the minutes.
Lisa, you're on mute.
Sorry. My computer was on slow-mo. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on, the first item on the agenda is to talk about the Two Bridges letter. So again, I didn't talk to Alicia about what this item was beforehand, but I'm assuming, Trevor, since you sent out the first round, that you have information on this that you want to share. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm going to simplify it. What it boils down to, we're now in the third draft of the reasonable worst case scenario. Because of a timing issue, all the other co-applicants are ready to sign basically the work that was done by the consultant, George James. However, since land use doesn't meet until the 21st, is that correct, Jackie, or 23rd? 21st,
yes.
We can't sign the letter until, well, we think it requires a vote, so we can't sign that letter before the meeting. So I'd ask to bring it to exec so we can get this letter signed, because all we're doing is further advancing the rezoning proposal. I don't think there's anything in here that goes against what we started from in the beginning, and all the comments were made, or all the substantive comments were made by George James with the help of some of the co-applicant comments, but it was mostly the work of George James. I know everyone read all the memos and the documents, so.
I would put up, Michael, Trevor, don't you think you should put up the letter instead of this?
Yeah, that's a bit technical. The letter is the letter that we're preparing to send out.
And Trevor, can you explain to us why is the urgency here? I mean, what makes it so urgent?
Right.
I understand, like if we go through land use, that would be 21st, and that means we also have to go through full board, which would miss that line. So can you explain to the committee members?
Right. There's a couple of things. If we do not sign this letter, if we decide not to pursue it, it's over. It's done. That's the end of the rezoning proposal. It moves no further. And if that is the case, then we lose the other option, which the community board would not be a part of, and that is to sue DCP based on the fact that we believe that the memo or what we have submitted is complete. City planning is saying it's not complete. We believe it is complete, but we're going to change a couple of technical things, some mapping errors, some diagram errors, and he cleaned up a lot of the massing diagrams. But if it's not done, then essentially everything comes to a halt and it's over. And the deadline for filing that suit would be tomorrow.
So Lisa has her hand up. Lisa, do you have a question or a comment on this?
Yeah, I did. Am I still on mute? No, I'm not. Right. Oh, okay, good. Sorry. I did read everything, and I do have a number of concerns. I guess my bottom line concern is that I think that there are significant issues in this letter that the Land Use Committee would want to talk about. I didn't think it was straightforward. And I'm very worried, since our board has been held accountable of late about transparency, of taking this out of the hands of the Land Use Committee without a clear understanding of why there's an urgency. And it seems to me, I did have an opportunity to talk to Jackie a little bit about it, and he explained to me that the issue is with regard to the expiration of the Article 78.
Correct.
That we're not going to be a part of anyway. And and I don't see the relationship of this letter to the report that George James sent, which talks about two alternatives, about whether or not we want to compromise or whether or not we are standing directly about this project as originally submitted. And I think that's a question that our board would want to discuss. I thought he raised some interesting points, and I feel like that should really go to land use for consideration.
Normally, I would agree.
Let me just, the bottom line to me is, as I see this letter, there are only two signatories on it. One is CB3 and one is the attorney for all of the other co-applicants. So just have all of the other co-applicants sign it.
I understand that, but if
comfortable with it, they should, but I don't feel like I'm comfortable.
Well, I understand your point, Lisa, and we had a discussion on the phone about that. All the co-applicants would, but if the community board did not sign it, it would raise a red flag to city planning that they are not a part of the application. I hear you, but due to COVID and due to the fact that the Two Bridges has not been on land use for 4 months, even though we were supposed to discuss this, we are running into a bit of a deadline. His other scenario that is posed calls for changing the height and getting rid of the 50% of affordable housing. And that will be a very long discussion because we are straying far from what we originally started with, which basically comes from the Chinatown Working Group Plan and what the board voted on. We are not straying from what we originally voted on and what we originally asked to support. If we were to go down that second path, then we would stray, and that would require a serious conversation because we're going far away from the whole issue of 50% affordable housing, 350-foot height limits, and that's what the board agreed to move forward. So what we're seeing right now is nothing different than what the board agreed to move forward. I hear what you are saying, but the other path is not what the board agreed to move forward.
Let me just say that there are parts of this letter that I don't know that I ever agreed to, like admitting that we like a tower in the park design for this neighborhood over a contextual building. That's quite the opposite of what we've said previously. This letter makes a lot of arguments that I am not comfortable with. That's the foremost. And I really don't see the need for us to overstep our well-established and important transparency principle of having a vote on a major action such as this. I really think that if Paula feels comfortable signing it, Paula should sign it.
Lisa, let's stop right there because you keep saying Paula. That's just the way the letter is structured. It is a co-applicant letter. Obviously, it's not complete. It is in draft format. All the co-applicants would be signing it. It's not just Paula. It would also be me as a co-applicant or the group I represent. So it's not just Paula signing the letter.
Well, that's not what I saw.
Okay, I'm informing you so that you know, because it is a draft letter. It is not the final letter. Originally, Jim was a signatory that has moved to Alicia, and there's still some other changes that are being made right now. We're not asking to sign this letter at this moment because it is a draft. It is a question of how we proceed with this, because if we don't and we decide we're not going to move this forward, then we have said that we're no longer going to support the Two Bridges rezoning.
I
And that
don't
is a
see why
problem.
we're saying that. I don't see at all why we're saying that.
So your issue is with the letter, your issue is with the timing, your issue is with the content of the letter?
All of the above.
Okay, then
But
that's why we're here. That's why we're here at exec.
And I have a,
The bringing it to the exec rather than it going through its course.
I would have loved to bring to his course. We had 4 months to bring it to his course, but we hired George James at the last minute. We didn't have enough time. COVID came. I would love for this to go to land use and have a discussion.
George's memo doesn't address this letter in any way.
So I'm sorry.
I don't see the relationship of George's 11 pages, which I read very thoroughly. He doesn't take an opinion on whether or not we should sign this letter. He doesn't.
George drafted the letter. George James drafted the letter, Lisa.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that, but still, I don't see what his memo has to do with it. And his memo doesn't say go for the plan as the plan is. His memo
that's what we voted to do, Lisa, in the beginning. That's what we all voted for years ago.
I understand.
If you're saying that we should think about that vote that we have that the community board supported, that's a whole different story. But we voted to support this rezoning.
And I am saying that, but every step of the way, when we had to sign a letter, the land use committee reviewed it.
I agree with you. And if we didn't have COVID, we didn't have the pandemic, and then we have the issue of not meeting about this, because the first 2 meetings we had for land use, we weren't going to discuss anything unless it needed a vote or it was a land use issue. We did not discuss this at all. We probably should have discussed this back in March or April, but we did not.
I want to, sorry to interject. So regarding the reason we didn't talk about Two Bridges in April or May, it wasn't just because of the COVID. The DCP response, the negative DCP response came out on March 16. And we met with, we mean Susan, me, Jim, and the co-applicants met at the CB3 office on March 19. We decided that it was a lot to take, so we would regroup in June. And also because of the COVID was coming, so we'll regroup in June to talk about what do we want to move forward. And during those 3 months, we would digest the materials because there was a lot. And on June 9th, we were told by the co-applicants that they wanted to pursue the lawsuit. And so the concern here I have with this letter is that if you look at the days, so if tomorrow is the deadline, you can file Article 78, and you are sending this letter out to DCP. So do you expect them to respond within a day and saying, I mean, what do you expect them to do?
No, you're conflating a couple of different things, Jackie. We're not going to file tomorrow, but let's say a month from now, at Lisa's argument that this letter somehow strays from our original support of the Two Bridges rezoning, then we're done. There's nothing else we can do. The rezoning proposal is done. We can't sue. We can't say city planning was wrong. If we know we're going to sign a letter or something similar to this, then we still preserve that, because then we file a letter and we basically reset the countdown clock for an Article 78, because we're not treating that as a final determination. If we do not respond, we're treating DCP's last letter as a final determination.
Well,
So,
if you...
Go ahead, Jack.
Sorry, Mike. No, you go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, I think, at least for me, I think there's some confusion as to why this came to exec, because there's not enough time, because then you keep saying, well, no, there is time. We don't have to file tomorrow. So I guess if you just kind of dumb
It's not
right. The timeline for me.
It's not so much of us signing this letter today or tomorrow or even 15 days from now. The issue is if we decide we do not sign this letter or we do not support this letter, then essentially the rezoning proposal is finished. It's done. There's nothing else we can do because we said we're not going to pursue this, and we've lost our right to sue because tomorrow is the deadline. So we could, if this goes to land use, and if we, at the end of the month, it goes to land use and it goes to full board, and there's discussion about it, and it's voted down or no, or Lisa raises some concerns and says it's distrays from our original support, then the application cannot move forward at all, and we don't have any right to sue. We can't do anything else. We're done. To Lisa's point, the lawsuit matters, and it shouldn't matter to CB3 because CB3 would not be a part of that. That's also another issue because we're now saying that CB3 no longer supports this as a co-applicant because they would be done. That's where I have a big problem, especially in the beginning of this when I asked and we got the support of the full community board. And I know some members were uncomfortable. I remember everything everyone said about that. And I know some members were hesitant about it. And some members brought up the whole East Village issue, but the board voted to support the rezoning application. And that's where we are today. If there are two paths, but we're not going down that second path, at least not right now. That would take a very long discussion in land use. And the reason why we move this forward is because we're following the original principles of the Chinatown Working Group for this particular area, and anything that's negotiated will have to come about later on in long discussions in land use. We're not changing anything. We're saying we're going to respond to what city planning says. We're going to fix the memo. When George James has provided some comments, he's also drafted this letter. And we're not going any further than that at this point. I don't know if I cleared up the deadline, Michael. I probably put a lot of stuff in there, but.
Yeah, no, I'm still confused as to the deadline. So, I mean, it sounds like what you're asking for tonight is basically confirmation that the board still supports the rezoning, but then potentially it can still be discussed at land use. Is that right?
It can be discussed at land use. I'm raising the issue that
Go ahead, finish, Tara.
The issue that if we do not support this or the letter or then it's not so much as a co-applicant. Lisa suggested that the other three co-applicants just signed, but that wasn't what we voted upon. We voted for Community Board 3 to be a co-applicant. It's not just a decision for one person to say, okay, I don't think that CB3 should sign on as a co-applicant. CB3 voted to sign on as a co-applicant years ago.
Okay. So, Susan, do you have anything to add before we go to Lisa?
I was just saying procedurally, I don't want to be involved in substance, but just procedurally, you mentioned it could still be discussed at land use, but not this month. It would have to be on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
And I don't think do we still have the two bridges on the agenda like we've had for every month, or it was taken off? I didn't even check.
So
I was, well, Jackie should speak. I was told to put it on for August.
Right. Well, see, I don't know if executive committee members recall last exec or the exec before the last one, I mentioned at the committee report that we had a brief conversation with the co-applicants that we're going to do a presentation in the August land use meeting. And that has been my plan if it's still feasible. And then I feel like if we want to support, I mean, to resubmit the whole application to DCP, the worst case scenarios, reasonable worst case scenario, there's really no deadline. So I would prefer to have it presented to the land use committee first. And I'm pretty sure the committee members would want to know because they spend a lot of time in the last 2 years on this project as well. I mean, that is just my preference.
No, I mean, I understand your preference, and I'm raising it as an issue because of the deadline. And that's why I wanted to bring it to exec, because now we're not looking at reviewing anything about two bridges until August. And I think the last time we discussed anything about two bridges might have been February.
February, right.
Yes. And there are things that have happened and we haven't been able to discuss or vote. Right. And that's the reason why I wanted to bring it to exec. I hear the concerns about being transparent because there's been some issues in, about CB3's transparency. But here we are talking about August, and this thing is moving. It's, you know, things have to be done. And I understand with CB3 being a co-applicant, you got to go to the committee, then you got to go to full board. But there are timing issues that we're running into, and this is one of them.
Okay.
If that's the, I'm not even going to go on unless people have comments. If that's the consensus, then that's fine. But I really take some concern about the context of the letter, which was written by George James, and the fact that I don't know if people are forgetting what we originally supported, but I think that needs to be explained, Jackie, because what I'm hearing right now is people forgetting what the board supported. The second option is not an option at this time in terms of lowering heights and decreasing the amount of affordability, because that's not what the board voted on. Neither is the board leaving as a co-applicant and the other persons or Paula signing it as co-applicants, because that's not what we voted on to do. And I take grave issue with that. And I'll raise that in land use, because that is not what the plan that we originally signed on to or originally voted for.
Okay, so can we, let's just move on. There's 2 hands up, so let's hear what those questions, comments are before we move forward. Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to see if I'm clear on this. My understanding is that there may be a timeline for an Article 78. I don't know, but I believe Trevor when he says that's immediate.
Tomorrow.
Got it. But I don't believe that means that's if we don't take an action today, then we have essentially given up on or become or that this proposal is dead. All that means is that we may have lost the opportunity to sue, but
We
that
cannot
does not mean,
sue.
pardon me?
I'm sorry, Lisa.
To finish, please. Let
Sorry.
me finish without interruption.
We may have lost the opportunity to sue in an Article 78, which we can't do anyway, but that the co-applicants could do. If that was your point, Jackie, I understand that. But it does not mean that the application is done. The city planning's position is that they're still considering it, right? And that we can use our political and every other methodology we can think of to continue to work with them to get them to honor this, including what George James mentioned in his letter, which was calling on Carl Weisbord's position that they have to move ahead on a project, even if they have substantive differences with it. That is our position, and we should continue with that position. I don't believe that the project is dead if we don't have an Article 78.
Okay, May?
So, I mean, I do remember the board, saying that we would get involved in this project and, be a co-applicant. But in terms of the letter itself, I don't really understand it well enough to say, about, it's a clear, I mean, it's in response to something. Whether the responses are good or bad, I really can't judge on that right now. But I just wanted to clarify. So the letter needs to be sent out tomorrow because of a
No,
clock.
it doesn't need to be sent out tomorrow.
Oh, when does it need to be sent out?
It doesn't need to be, there isn't technically a deadline for the letter to be sent out, other than the fact that it needs to be timely, and we are way beyond timely at this time. I think what's missing, now that I'm listening to Lisa and your initial comments, is a letter that city planning sent out saying basically your application can't move forward. And that's a summary of what city planning said. I don't know if Michael can pull it up real quick, but it basically said your application is not complete, you can't move forward.
That's the first thing I shared,
Oh,
or no?
I don't think so.
And I don't have it.
Well, I'm just
I
giving you
think-
the summary. It was 2 paragraphs. There's nothing much more than others saying, So there is an argument based on what we believe city planning should do, and that is that their position is to move applications along as long as they're complete, as opposed to giving an opinion on before they actually vote on it. But that would have to be, honestly, an Article 78 argument, as opposed to in a memo, like we're about, in a letter like this, the one that's shown on the screen. Two different issues. So there is something with the city planning that basically says that this article, this rezoning proposal is incomplete and cannot move forward. And this is the response to that.
So I think that, again, that's what's causing the confusion, at least for me, is that you said the letter doesn't need to go tomorrow. So when does the letter need to go? And if it doesn't need to go tomorrow, why can't this letter go to land use in August? Although obviously it would be preferable to go in July, but we can't do that because the agenda's already set. I mean, basically, is all you're looking for tonight, or is all the co-applicants looking for tonight, is assurance that CB3 is still behind this project?
I guess that's probably, I mean, I would like to get support for the letter. I'm seeing some hesitation on that. Ideally, it would be nice to have it signed, but to be honest, it's still in draft form and there's still at least 2 edits to be made. So I don't think that could be done. I'm just raising the issue because we're not going to meet until August. And even if the land use does decide, it's still got to go to full board. So we're really looking at almost a September letter. And we're not being timely on this because just the way of the COVID, but also just because of the way CB3 works, which is that we understood that coming into this with CB3 as an application. That's why I'm bringing this up, and the timing issue.
So, I mean, I haven't heard anyone say that they're not supportive of the project anymore. So I think it's safe to assume that the board still is supportive. If I'm incorrect, somebody raise their hand or interject and stop me on that. I would say, again, I'm completely unprepared because I wasn't prepared to chair tonight, but I would suggest that maybe if the letter is going to be redrafted anyway or edited.
Well, minor edits though, Michael, minor edits.
Can we maybe insert a paragraph into here that says something about the fact that, that due to the pandemic and timelines and whatnot, and that the land use committee of the community board wasn't able to fully discuss these things, but the community board's executive committee is still in support or something like that?
To a certain extent, but that doesn't necessarily stop or absolve us of certain deadlines. But I hear what you're saying. And I'm not trying to stay on this too long. My point about this letter and raising it is just to bring it up, because I don't know any other way for us to do this. And waiting to August is really gonna, I don't really remember what we discussed in the co-applicant meeting about how, waiting till August or essentially to September, but I know it wasn't the best scenario. So we can't move on this at all. And we've already paid George Danes until essentially September.
He's already paid.
Yeah, that's what I said. He's already paid.
Oh, yeah.
So we're sitting on this. We can't do anything. We can't move. I imagine that there's some sort of response that is needed. I should have clarified that with the team, but I don't remember what it was. But I imagine there's certain responses needed, because I remember saying it needed to be done in a couple of weeks. And I don't know any other way to move this, because this is 7-8 months in and we haven't been able to do anything about it.
So
that's why I suggested bringing it to exec.
Okay, so but right now, the board is not the only thing holding this up, because there are still other minor edits being made.
Yeah,
correct?
but those are minor. That would not, those edits could be done tonight. They're not major edits. It's like, well, you need to change it to page 4 or page 3 or add this map. They aren't major edits. And even if the edits are made in 2 days, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
Because if it's got to go to land use, then we're talking about August. So there's no other procedure. The reason why I said exec, because there's nothing else that would allow us to discuss this and bring it up before the end of August.
Yeah, but okay. So I'm trying to come up with a happy medium here. So if we are able to add some language into this letter that sort of provides a disclaimer as to why land use wasn't able to talk about it and it came to exec or whatever. Does that satisfy those who've already spoken about their concerns for us signing this letter?
And you're saying we do not sign it?
No, what I'm saying is we don't sign it now, that we ask for, you know, while they're making edits to it, we ask them to put some more language in there that sort of talks, you know, a paragraph that talks more about the community board's, you know, the fact that the community board hasn't really had a full amount of time to send this to committee, given the way that we work and given the pandemic, but that we are still in support of the project moving forward, and that potentially those edits can be made relatively soon, and that maybe we can revisit this letter at our second exec meeting in 2 weeks.
But then, unless the community board signs it, what difference would that make? Because then it becomes a letter with the three other co-applicants or the two other co-applicants. What difference would it make if we put that in there if the community board's not signing it? If the community board did sign it, then it would make, you know, hold some weight.
That's what I'm asking. If we put that in there, saying that we are, that we're still in support of it and that we're signing the letter, even though we weren't able to discuss that committee. That was the question I was posing to Lisa and to Matt. But I don't.
Can I interject a little bit? So I feel like the whole letter should be reviewed by the land use committee. I will prefer it that way. And number two, we only received this letter. Actually, this letter was brought to CB3 only on June 24th. So, and we've been working trying to see what can we do for this letter. But after giving it some thoughts, I do have a little bit of hesitation. I prefer it to be reviewed by the land use committee, but it's up to the exec to decide.
Okay. Susan, I saw your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, again, just procedurally, the changes you're suggesting, I don't understand what they accomplish because they don't mean anything one way or another to an agency. So
Okay.
I just don't, you know, I understand it kind of makes everyone feel better, but I don't know what they mean.
All right, Lisa?
I don't feel comfortable signing this letter without it going to land use. As May said, it's complicated. It's something that land use has the expertise to review, and I feel like that's where it should go. If we want a general letter that says Community Board 3 continues to support the project without all of this detail, we could do a letter like that. Nothing has changed about our opinion, our support for this. I don't see why Alicia couldn't write that. That's what we need. That's
Okay, let me back up some because I'm a little confused, Lisa. The bullet points on the first page, that's basically just, there's nothing in there that the CB3 feels uncomfortable with.
Are you good? I don't want to go through this point by point at this point. I don't think that's productive.
No, I understand. I'm looking at what I'm trying to understand what you're saying about if community board, if there was a simple letter, not something like this, just attached to the memo itself, that would be fine.
I'm saying not with bullet points, just saying Community Board 3 continues to support the application for, for the RWCDS or whatever you want to refer to it, and that we have taken no position to otherwise change as of this, our support for this project as one of the co-applicants.
No, I understand that, but then how do you send in the third draft if you don't have a cover letter for it? You're saying that should be the cover letter for it?
No, I'm saying we don't sign this, but if you're saying all we need is an indication of our support, we send that.
Procedure wise, and I hear what you're saying, but you know this letter is attached to the actual draft of the RWCDS, which Michael had on the screen first.
This letter is attached. So
So if we just sent the RWCDS without a cover letter, essentially, or saying we support this, then you're saying you wouldn't have an issue. Because you're talking about things in a letter and you don't want to go point by point. I understand it, and we're 7:09 on this one little topic. I understand what you're saying, but
we support. I guess I'm not saying that we support the. I haven't seen that letter that we got from DCP. So
I'm not talking about the letter. I'm actually. Do you understand what happened here? We are submitting the third draft.
All right, so I just want to put a stop to the back and forth between you and Lisa because it's turning into a private meeting. And Alicia's joined us now, and I think she has more information on this than I ever did. So let's have Alicia talk, and Linda has her hand up also. So Alicia?
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone, and I apologize for the delay. I'm not in New York, just having some technical difficulties. But anyway, so we're talking about the letter now for the rezoning, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what has been said already, everyone got a copy of what the letter looks like. And so the issue was sending the letter with our support on the letter. Was making sure that we were able to attach some type of supportive letter to go with it. Am I right, Trevor?
Well, we spent a half an hour discussing it, but yeah, I think everyone is kind of up to speed on that.
So so the debate, I apologize because I didn't get a chance to really listen in on the last part of the debate between, I know Lisa was the last one speaking. So what was the concern, Trevor? The main concern was what?
The concern is raised by Lisa, May, and others that this should go to land use because it is complicated and it requires a full review. Where we are right now is if there's a compromise cover letter that can go with the RWCDS. So I was asking Lisa, and I wasn't trying not to make it private, but I was asking Lisa if that memo is attached. Is she talking about the actual letter, or is she talking about the memo itself? And I'm still not clear.
The memo and the letter are two separate things, right? The memo
Correct.
was, right, okay, so the thing is, the letter would be us supporting the memo, yes?
It would be, but it's a cover letter and it highlights certain things. It says, here's the memo, here are the changes that we made.
Okay, and so the controversy around this is saying that we don't need to send a supportive letter, the memo should speak for itself.
No.
No, the controversy is that there's a lot of things in this letter that people don't feel comfortable
Without discussing further. So
Right.
are we saying that, I looked at the letter. I do agree that some things that are in the letter should be discussed a little further and taken to up at the committee meeting. Perhaps Trevor, I don't know why are we rushing to get it out. I'm not really sure. Is there some type of deadline? That's what I wasn't really sure about. Is there a deadline on the letter?
Yeah, and we got into that a bit. It isn't so much of a deadline. It's more of dates that are passing and the fact that if we don't, we won't get this out to August. But I'm okay, and I understand that. Where I'm at right now, because I think we can sort of close this pretty quickly, is if it's not the memo itself and it's the letter itself, then what type of cover letter should go with the memo that the community board would feel comfortable? Because typically when you send in a memo, you sort of highlight the changes, including the technical changes that you have made. If it has too much opinion, then that's another thing. But if we're going to send in the RWCDS.
But I think what it is, Trevor, is that a lot of the conversation that has been generated was stuff that wasn't discussed at committee. I think that's what it is.
And I agree with you, Alicia. I feel like even just sending out the memos, those memos, I'll prefer them to be presented to land use first. The reason is because the two bridges we have submitted the rezoning application twice, and there was no real presentation to the committee for a long time. I mean, we gave them a little update in before February. However, there was no, and this is substantial change. We spent money, hired a consultant to create two memos, and I prefer these two memos being presented to the committee to let them understand what's really going on, and also take a look at this letter to see if we want to support it or not.
So here's
Jackie,
my
just a quick-
question. Trevor, here's my
I'm
question.
going to pull it and make this easy. Jackie, the second memo that was written, did we present that to land use?
The second memo, you're talking about strategy or the or
RWCDS?
No, we did not.
Yeah.
But the
Okay.
substance, it is. I mean, I was, because we purposely asked George not to do substantial change. It was just technical change. However, I feel like even with the technical change, it will be good to update the committee. That's just my.
No, I
opinion.
understand that.
So
I
we should
understand
send
that.
it back to committee. So can we just take a vote on it so we can
We don't
stop
need
it?
to.
No.
Alicia, we don't need to vote. We're kind of at the end of this. I was just there was some compromise presented. We don't. It's going back to land use. I was
Okay.
raising it because we hadn't discussed it. We've already done a second memo, which did not go to land use or get a discussion or
Okay.
a memo. There was no controversy about that. We
So
reached
it's
the
gonna
third
be-
memo.
So it's
so
going to
it'll go
be
to
on the
land use.
land. It's going to be on the land use committee agenda.
For August.
Yes,
Okay.
In August.
Right.
in August. Okay.
Linda,
I'll just take a different role here because I've been sitting back and I'm not going to sit back anymore.
Linda, did you want to still say anything?
Well, I think everything's been said. Let me just say that I am supportive of what Jackie and Lisa are saying. I'm very concerned that land use has not discussed this and the community hasn't had a chance to see what we're up to.
That was also my point, and why I decided to bring it to exec is because we haven't had any discussion about this since February. We've done a second draft without comment, and we're approaching a third with deadline, and now we're looking at August, September. So
Yeah,
I understand it.
sympathize.
I just wanted to bring it up to say, hey, look, I'll just take another role here because I've been sitting back, but I'm not going to do that anymore.
Okay.
Okay, but Trevor, your role, when you say you're sitting back in your role, are you saying your role as a community board member or your role that is in the community itself?
Community itself.
Okay, so there's a thin line when you represent yourself and you represent the community board, right?
I've done it both many times. I got about 6 hats. I know which ones to wear, which ones to take off.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Trevor. All right, everyone. So now, what's the next item on the agenda?
Agenda is the waiver from the Moxy Hotel.
Okay.
How do you want to handle it? Do you want me to mention why I put it on the agenda? Do you want Alex to talk?
Susan, can you give the background, please?
Gotta go to land use.
Who said that?
It's all right. Let's move on. I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
pick everybody but Alicia and Susan.
Okay, thank you. So this request came to me about a week ago, which I forwarded to Alicia and Alex to put on the exec. We've talked about waivers before due to the executive order and COVID and all that. This seems, I've polled the 12 Manhattan boards, this seems to be the only waiver that has come forward so far. So waivers are needed only for private property and only when there is a stipulation by the community board prohibiting the action requested. So, and Alex might want to speak more to this, but so our stipulation says the rooftop at Moxy Hotel from 10th to 11th Street can only be used with a glass enclosure, which of course they cannot do right now because that's against COVID regulations. So this is a waiver to temporarily waive that stipulation, I guess would be till the end of September. We should talk about that. And because everything's being done overnight, the SLA has said they'll take a letter from the executive committee. And that's all I have to say unless there's questions.
Alex,
Okay.
you want to add anything?
Alex?
Sorry, Alicia.
Sure, I guess I just need some clarification. So I looked at the information that they provided, and what they said they were going to install was a rollover cover on a metal frame. The rollover cover could be rolled back, so presumably there's no issue with respect to the roof. And these glass panels that are affixed to the metal frame. When I looked at what the structure is, it looks pretty fixed. They're going to remove their fixed structure, or there's a way to take it down to have an open air rooftop?
So I'm not really sure about the structure part of it, Alex, but what I know is that it's a temporary order because this is probably going to disappear in September anyway. I mean, I really don't see an issue with it. I know that we've given like at least 2 to 3 weeks to think about it. It was given to Susan a few weeks ago, and I know we sent
No, last week. I
Yeah,
sent it
last
to you.
week.
I sent it to you guys the day I got it.
a week ago. Thank you, Susan, for clarification. A week ago was
The
sent out,
applicants,
and I know that, you know, if we needed to make what exactly it's going to look like, to be honest with you. Go ahead, Susan. What did you say?
I'm sorry, I was not trying to interrupt you. I didn't know you were still talking. I was going to say 2 things. One, the applicants are on the attendee list, so I don't know if, you know, just to let you know. And the other thing is that we're only asked, what we're being asked to do is basically a 1-sentence thing. And that is to temporarily waive that one stipulation. So, you know, that's what we need to vote on.
I don't see a problem with it, but Alex, what is it that you're concerned about?
I just wanted to know how they were going to affect it under what the structure actually is. That's it.
So
If they're prepared to take a structure down and put a structure back up so that they can have the 6 hours a day, then that's fine.
okay, so as Susan mentioned, the applicant
You're
is
here.
on the list. I don't know who they are, but if
Yeah.
you want, unmute them and they can answer that question. You want me to do that? All right, somebody's microphone is.
Please, people, mute. This is bad.
I think it's their microphone, Linda.
All right. So I've muted everyone. I'm going to unmute Lisa because you have a question.
Yes, I wondered if Alex remembered how close the nearest window was to an adjoining building.
I actually reviewed the minutes. It's 15 feet.
Can you say that again, Alex? You broke up a little bit.
15 feet.
15 feet. All right.
Let me, and I'll double check it because I have 15 feet, but I'm going to.
So maybe if we can let the applicant speak, they can say whether people are there at this time or not. Because
Their microphone, something's going on with their mic, Susan.
I need to know who the applicant is so I can unmute them.
I'm going to tell you the 3 people: Judy Tepperberg, Mark, and Megan Bobberts.
Okay.
And Megan.
So they all have the ability to unmute themselves now. If one of them wants to unmute themselves and answer the question about the structure.
Sure. Hi, this is Megan with Lightstone, we own the property. The structure is a glass and metal structure, but it does actually have the ability to stack back. So it can open up in the middle, and the glass panels can stack back on either end. So we don't have to remove the whole thing.
Thank you, Megan.
Yep.
Alex, do you have any other questions you want to ask them while we have them?
I saw 2, I'm sorry, I'm trying to enlarge my screen and not working out with it very well, sorry. So yes, it is 15 feet from I think the back windows of 85 4th Avenue. So my only concern is with respect to that to the proximity to the windows and how that's been addressed. I saw that there were a couple of letters in support, but one was very vague and the other one seemed to come from the head of a building. I can look at that also. So just that it was addressed with the residents, which is what we've always asked of them anyway. It's what we ask of every hotel, is to have an ongoing dialogue with the residents who are going to be impacted.
Yeah, sure, and we'll address any resident issues. We have the two sort of like senior operations people, the hotel general manager and the food and beverage general manager. We'll make sure, you know, their information is clearly posted. If anybody has any concerns, you know, they can reach out to them directly.
I appreciate that, but did you do it already?
Yeah, Alex, I was going to say that. I literally was about to say,
No, I'm sorry,
Megan,
that's what I meant. I thought she misunderstood me. Thanks,
yeah,
Alicia.
Megan, can you please make sure that those tenants of those buildings behind or wherever the structure is they're going to have it posted in their lobby where they can find you or find the person that's in charge of the noise so that they're not disturbed at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to do that with the surrounding buildings.
Susan?
And how will we
Okay.
know that that was done? How will we know that that got done?
We can send you a picture. I can have Leo, you know, type something up and post it in the buildings, you know, go get something to the manager of the building and we'll take a picture and send it over to you.
Oh, great. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
Alex, is that sufficient?
Can I say?
That's fine. I just wondered if they had a conversation, because they got some support letters. If they had a conversation with the residents who would be most impacted at all before this happened. That's all I was asking.
No,
Right.
quite honestly, we haven't. You know, you know, there's no in-person thing. I don't think anybody's comfortable, nor does
I
anybody
didn't
really
mean
want
it in
us.
person. I meant in any form.
No, but you know, if the community board is supportive of it, you know, we'll definitely open up conversations with. We have, you know, good relationships with the surrounding buildings, and we'll make sure we post a sign in the event that they need to contact anyone.
Okay. Susan, go ahead.
Thank you. So the conversation I had with Mark starting a week ago was that you guys contact all the residents that you can surrounding the area. And I did not forward this, but I got a list of like 15 people that you tried to contact but couldn't because they were away. So that what Megan's saying now sort of is not what I expected, because could you talk about the conflict of Mark telling me that you had, you know, tried all these people, but you weren't getting answers. And because I know a lot of people are out of the city, my building's pretty much empty. So like the person is 15 feet away. Is that person even there? Have you tried contacting that person? And is that person there?
Well, we don't know, you know, and I don't have a full list of everybody who lives in every apartment. We would typically send it to the management company of the neighboring buildings, and they would, you know, distribute it to their tenants. The people we reached out to are the people who came to our initial meetings, who we had contact information for. You know, the building behind us at 85 East 10th has 120 apartments. I don't have contact details for everybody in that building. You know, 85 4th Avenue, you know, so we reached out to the people who we had dialogue with before. And then, you know, if this is something the community is supportive of, we can, you know, make sure an email blast goes out and a sign goes up for all of the residents that may still be in those buildings.
So what we're saying now, if I could just make sure I understand, is you have reached out to every person that has shown interest in coming to your meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're asking them to do is now post flyers in those lobbies so that people that they might not have contact information for can be alerted to the scenario.
And send us photographs that it got done.
Alicia, I'm assuming we need to take a vote on this?
Yes.
Yes, we should. Okay.
So can we say what we're voting on? Can I? So we're going to have to send, send a letter. And what I would like to suggest is that it would be to, and this is just to give you something to work with. CB3 approves the temporary waiver of the stipulation to have only enclosed dining on the rooftop during the executive order for outside, for the executive order for COVID.
Okay, Michelle, are you gonna do a roll call vote for this?
Yeah, but are we okay with that statement?
I'm okay with that statement. Is everyone in favor of that statement?
So it's the executive order that you cannot have indoor dining, right?
Correct. That
Should we
maybe you want to say
reiterate?
the executive order prohibiting indoor dining.
Yes, I think
Because
that's
once
better.
they allow indoor dining, then they could put up the enclosure again.
Right, that
There
will
could
probably
still be
like around the
executive
end of
order.
that'll probably be around the end of September, May.
Okay.
Seems like a lot of people have opinions on this because there's a lot of crosstalk. So I think I heard Lisa and Alex. Lisa, did you have a comment or a question?
I just thought that our resolution should reiterate the hours and say from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Tuesday through Thursday and 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Friday and Sunday.
I'm fine with that. Michelle, you have this also, but it's the paragraph that's on the screen right now, basically, that has the hours. Alex,
Okay.
add anything?
I just agree with May that I think that it should be the portion of the executive order or this executive order pertaining to the prohibition against indoor dining in eating and drinking establishments and associated establishments, because there's always the possibility for dining, but there continue to be executive orders. So if we're not specific enough, it might be too vague for them.
Does anyone know which executive order it is, the number?
You know, that would be fine to just say against prohibiting indoor dining.
Okay. Jackie, did you have anything? You're unmuted.
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move to roll call vote, Michelle.
Can I just read back the sentence so I make sure I have this? CB3 approves a temporary waiver of the stipulation to only have enclosed dining on the rooftop at the Moxy Hotel during the COVID-related executive order pertaining to the prohibition on indoor dining. The operations at the Moxy Hotel would be from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Tuesday through Thursday and 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Friday through Sunday. Does that work?
Yes.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Alicia Lewis Coleman.
Yes.
Michael Marino.
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan. Lisa Kaplan.
Sorry,
Lisa.
yes, I was muted
Thank you.
again, sorry.
Eric Diaz.
Yes.
Michelle Cooper Smith. Yes. Herman Hewitt. I don't think he's on. Okay. Anisha Stephen.
Yes.
May Lee.
Yes.
Jackie Wong.
Yes.
Linda Jones.
Sorry. Yes.
Alex Militano.
Yes.
Trevor Holland.
Yes.
Paul Rangel.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your consideration. We really do appreciate it.
All right. Don't forget to get the pictures to us, okay?
Absolutely. Well, I'll have them type something up and post it tomorrow, and we'll send it over to Susan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, what's the next item on the agenda? Can I see the agenda?
It is your chair report, first chair's report, second vice chair's report, treasurer's report.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. I apologize for my tardiness, and I'm out of town right now, but it's okay. I'm here. I made it. So really quickly, I wanted to say we need to send a thank you letter out to Margaret Chen and to Carlina Rivera for giving us discretionary money. We didn't even think that we were going to get any money, and we were able to get some money. And so Susan, if you'd like to tell them the exact amount of the money that we received. Susan? Where's Susan?
Okay, I'm sorry, I was talking on while I was muting. I was surprised that we got the same that we always get, which is, was 4,500 from Carlina, 35 from Margaret, which I just want to add personally, I think shows great respect for the community boards in this time when there's very little money. We also got, every community board in Manhattan also got $1,000 from Ben, what's his last name? Ben Kalos?
Kalos, yeah.
Yeah, which was kind of a surprise to everybody, but that's what it is. So that's the information.
Thank you, Susan. So yeah, so that was really awesome that we were able to receive that money, and that helps, that's going to help us quite a bit for the following year. We know that we've been hit with some major budget cuts, and so just be aware, September soon comes, and so we have to prepare for the budget and the budget meeting. So everyone, please look on the lookout for that. The other thing I think I wanted to share with everyone just was, I think that the office is a little bit, the office is dealing with a lot right now. And so everything that we can do to do our part really helps. I mean, I know Susan doesn't really complain a lot about it, but I really have to say they've really been working very hard. And I know everyone, just please pull your weight. If there's something that you need to know, just let me know. Maybe I can help you before it goes to them. Easy working remotely for all of us. I know it's been a hardship for everyone. And I just want to be as supportive as I can for them. I normally get off work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so you guys are always open to call me after 3 p.m. And I know I have to get better at really connecting with people, just checking in with you and making sure if you need any support, you let me know, whatever that looks like. You let me know what I can do to help you so that we don't overwhelm the office. I know that we have not stepped up and took responsibility for a lot of things, and the office has been kind of filling in the blanks for us. And like looking at the timeline, I mean, that's something that we need to do. Like, what are we preparing for September in the timeline? The summer is here, August is coming. We normally don't work in August, but we might have to work this August. As you see, we have committee meetings that are going to take place in August, and this is the first time in a long time that we've had to do that. And so I want us just to be prepared for that in advance. And looking at the timeline, I need someone to like say, hey, I'll take over looking at the timeline every time we need to look at it to see if we're on point with anything, or if we're not quite there. Like in September, we have to get ready for a nominating committee for November to start the new elections of executive officers. As you guys know, the elections will soon be right around the corner for everything that we do. So, you know, these are the type of things that we have to start looking at on our own. The office really does a lot of filling in the blanks where we don't step up and we're not being responsible as far as those things are concerned. And like really looking at, and I do apologize. I'm not blaming anyone at all. I'm just saying, like, it would be great if we all just took the responsibility and said, let's just look at this. What are we missing? What time of year is it? Okay, we know that every fall we have to get ready for the election, and we have to get ready for the budgets, and we look for the, you know, the priorities, you know, so these are the things. So that's all I really have to say. I really don't want to say too much about it. And again, I thank everyone for the hard work that they're doing. I know COVID still is not going anywhere. We're still stuck inside for the most part. So thank you to the office, and thank you to everyone that's doing a really great job. First Vice Chair report.
Before we get to that, Trevor has his hand up. I believe there's a question about your report from Trevor.
Yes, it actually goes back to Susan and the budget issue. I understand there was a substantial amount of money left over and you were going to donate it to a CBO. Do you know who the CBO or who was it donated to?
Nobody, never happened.
So
Nobody
the
did.
money just expired?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so
Vice Chair report.
yeah, not much going on here. Just a couple of Zoom related things. Now that most of you have taken over your meetings, freeing up my nights, thank you very much. I just wanted to remind people, because it seems that a couple of chairs have learned that you can stop the recording and then start it again before, so that it's not catching the first 5 or 10 minutes of you just, excuse my language, bullshitting with your committee members before you start the business of the meeting. So just a reminder, don't stop the recording, pause the recording. Because if you stop the recording, Zoom then starts a whole new recording every time you stop the recording. So there was one meeting this week that had 6 video files because they kept stopping and starting the recording. So you just need to pause the recording and not stop it. If you pause the recording, it winds up just being one file. So otherwise, I think the only committees that I'm still dealing with are parks because I'm on it. And this month, Arts and Culture is meeting for the first time, so I'll be managing that meeting for them. And it's good because next week I start a new job and I have an hour and a half commute to Island. So it's going to be harder for me to get to 6:30 meetings.
Congratulations, Michael.
Yeah, unemployment's been fun, but the vacation is over. That's it for me.
I guess that means
Michael.
I'm up as second vice chair. I guess I should just say that I think the trainings that I was asked to sort of coordinate went pretty well. And I really want to thank all of the committee chairs who participated. The work they put into it was great. And I thought they were very useful. And I believe after some minor editing, Susan has seen that they're all of the presentations are posted now on the board's website. So that's pretty much it for me. Now I'll talk enough. Bye.
Thank you, Lisa. That they really were great. I really appreciate, and all those that attended, I really appreciate you being able to attend those. And they were very informative. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
So now we have Mr. Hewitt. Are you online? Treasurer's report.
I don't believe he's online. Let me check. But I did want to say that now that all the presentations are online also, I plan to send a message out to all of the board with links to the presentations and links to the 2 videos from the trainings, because that would be good for people to watch in their spare time as they're sitting at home doing nothing.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love it. Okay, district managers report.
Okay, first just on, to go back to the money, we had 8,000 taken out of our budget this year for the program to eliminate the gap. So the council money was particularly important to replace that. This year it's becoming replacement money as opposed to additional money. Alicia, you said that letters would be written to the 2 council members. Who's doing that?
Michelle and Eric, can we talk offline about that and we can generate a letter? Or we can generate the letter before we get off tonight and just generate a thank you letter.
I'm happy to draft that, so we don't need to do it on a meeting right now.
Okay, the same letter can be sent to both. Okay, so it's Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
So as far as the trainings, well, first of all, I want to go to what Alicia said about me being busy because I'm a little bit embarrassed. I didn't expect it and I'm a little embarrassed. And I keep telling Alicia, I'm never going to complain about being too busy unless you stop talking about it. I wanted that to be a personal thing. So as far as people's help, I do appreciate help. I think it's most efficient with discrete things like writing letters. And I'm already working very closely with the chairs and I appreciate that. I think the kinds of things Alicia mentioned, like watching the timeline, which I shouldn't be doing anyway, is the kind of thing that, you know, I would like to not have to worry about. Sorry. I just want to correct something. So last month I was not at the meeting, but I watched a little bit of it. And I saw a report that I had submitted to the SLA blanket waiver letter with businesses supplied by the bid. And nobody on the exec said, what is this about? How come we don't know about it, except for me? And I said, I never heard of that. So that was clearly something said to someone that is 100% false, 100% lie. I wish when people hear something like that, they would ask me about it, because I would never do something like that without going by the board first. And it was a total opposite of what I had originally suggested to the board when we thought we were dealing with the council the council dining issues. What I had said is, let's do a letter so we don't have to mention businesses. It was never a letter to mention businesses. So that the concept and the idea of that has never existed except in someone's mind who has nothing to do with me.
Susan,
yeah.
I don't know if I had anything to do with that. I did hear that somewhere.
Yeah, you were the one that reported it.
I don't know that I mentioned it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that's the only time I've ever heard of it. I've never heard of it at any other time. Yeah, but that was the issue. Anyway, I just want people to know two things. One, it didn't happen. And two, when you hear something like that, that's just crazy, please ask me. And the only other thing I want to report on is the outdoor dining stuff. The good part, which is very small, is that the outdoor dining has greatly improved the crowd situation. The bad part is that the city is just so screwed up on this, and it has become a burden on the community members and very much the community board to deal with not only deal with all the complaints, but also helping the businesses. And I'll give you an example. We have one restaurant that's very community-based, and he has a very nice outdoor setup, and it was inspected by DOT, it was fine. It was inspected by DOT, it was fine. Then DOD did another inspection, and they took around 100 DOB people to help them inspect, and the DOB person gave them a notice of violation and said it's wrong. I have the copy of the paper. It says you have 24 hours to fix this or you could get fined, but it doesn't say what's wrong. And he kept saying, please tell me what's wrong. And they said, go to the website and look how it should be. So I'm dealing with DOT on this issue. I think it needs to be changed globally, but this is the kind of thing that's going on. We have businesses that applied for new sidewalk cafes. The city is not processing these applications. They don't need them now because there's free outdoor dining, but they're not giving back the application fees, which could be up to $3,000. So there's just so many things, and I can't even begin to tell you. The state has Department of Motor Vehicle people doing inspections for the state. They have no idea what they're doing. And some of the good businesses that are complying are complaining about other businesses that are not complying and getting more business. So it is just a mess. And it's every time I think we're turning a corner on this COVID thing and we're going to be able to do our work in a normal manner, something changes. As far as the trainings, I'm sorry, I'm going back to that. There's very little editing that needs to be done, but it still needs to be done, and it should be done in a week or so. I'm assuming with all the work going on that it's not a rush that it can't wait for a week. But let me know if that's not true. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Anyone have any questions for Susan? Michael?
I don't, no, there's no hands up, but I did. Oh, sorry, Linda seems to be raising her hand.
I'm taking the new way of raising my hand. Little blue thing doesn't work too well. So Susan, I just greatly sympathize. I cannot tell you because I hear a lot because of the block association. People have complaints, they call 311, apparently nothing happens. Then they're getting tired of calling 311. And I know they should keep calling 311 because that's how something eventually might happen. When we're not burdening you with all this because it's just too much. But it's still, you know, I remember from hearing some of this in Department of Transportation meeting last night too, that people getting kind of burned out on trying to be good community citizens and kind of help manage this situation.
So this is what I'm telling people. And, you know, some things are a burden, but they're kind of a priority to deal with the problem. So a lot of these 311 complaints are dealing with global type complaints. It's not just this business is doing this. I find out things by the complaints. For instance, I found out some people had outdoor music setups, which is totally illegal at any time. And what was happening was DOT was going by and inspecting the street setups for safety and not looking at anything else. So the restaurant owners assumed everything else was fine. And so we were able, because of the complaints from the residents and finding out what's going, we were able to kind of get at the root of the problem. What I've been asking people to do is to call 311, make the complaint, but then send it to me, let me know, and let me know, you know, if it needs follow-up, because just knowing the kinds of things that are happening allows us to also deal with it on a larger level. I've also really been working very closely with Carlena's office, who has interns going out and actually speaking to some of the owners to explain some of the non-compliance, which has helped. I'm getting emails from residents saying that, you know, the music, you know, particularly things like the outdoor music, that's gone. Some of the things are because of complaints. I have found that businesses who are allowed to use backyards but are not allowed to use a common residence hallway to get there, you know, these are the kinds of problems. So we have to kind of educate the agency on how to inspect and what to look for. So I understand. And the other thing I want to tell you is 311 complaints, if they have to be very careful and say it's for reopening restaurants, because then it's no longer going to the agency, it's going to the Mayor's Office of Special Operations, who is doling them out to the agencies, but tracking them differently. So I do want to know what's going on. I do want them to call 311, but I do want to know what's going on because we're trying to deal with categories of complaints and be proactive. But thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna say to them, go ahead and forward these to you.
Yes.
But don't expect
Absolutely.
immediate action. You're gathering data for the whole community, and you're looking to do more like systemic action, right?
Exactly.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, now we're moving on to SLA. Alex?
Haven't had committees
I
yet.
haven't met yet. It's on the 20th.
Okay, nothing to report. Transportation.
Good evening. We met last night. It was pretty good. Avenue B came out for FDNY. It went a lot better than I expected. It wasn't as contentious as I think May was. It was pretty good. There was Q&A from Open Restaurants. DOT was there. I think Susan pretty much just covered everything. A lot of people were complaining. They issued complaints calling 311. I think they rehashed everything. And we did district needs. And that was pretty good.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Okay, next we have, hold on a second, let me get my screen. Economic Development, Anisha.
We met earlier this month. Also, I think it was a good committee meeting.
It really was. I really applaud you.
We worked on the district needs statement, and there's no sort of material updates.
Thank you, Anisha. Health and Human Services.
Yeah, so we had a meeting last Thursday. We only worked on district needs. We had 3 speakers in 3 of the sub areas within Health and Human Services. It was a very long meeting, but there was a lot of good questions and answers. This time the committee members were a little bit more active in asking. I don't know, they were just getting used to the Zoom, atmosphere, but they were more active in asking questions and have volunteered to take on, to write little parts. But we are going to be a little bit more proactive in. When I say we, I don't mean the committee members, but just collecting all their stuff and then we'll put it together, as opposed to the other way around where they put it together and sometimes takes a long time. Larissa, again, she was the co-host, and Thomas Rosa took minutes. And if it goes well with that, and if they're interested, I would like to ask, I don't have a vice chair anymore. So I think I might want to ask Larissa to be the vice chair and Thomas to be the secretary, if things work out well and if they're interested. I haven't talked to them yet. So we are meeting in August because we still have a ways to go with our district needs.
Okay,
that's the
May.
end of my report.
Thank you, May. Land use. Jackie?
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute. Nothing to report. Our next meeting is July 21st.
Thank you, Jackie. Linda, landmarks, you guys met, right?
Excuse me, we did meet. Basically, our meeting was to refine our district needs statement. We made a lot of progress with that. But a couple things came up in the course of the meeting. One is, Susan, I need to spend some time with you on this probably. The conditions at PS 64 CHARS, which are very bad. And we would like to have a discussion about that in our August meeting, and even to invite someone from the Landmarks Preservation Commission to participate in the meeting. And Susan, we should talk about it because I know some of these are operational type issues, but you're just not getting it done. So we would like to talk about that in August.
Be happy to.
Okay, and the other thing that came up was, you may recall we talked about a couple of meetings back, Lesby and others put an application in for the 2 parks buildings to have them declared eligible for the National Register. They received that eligibility, and there's some consideration about how we should proceed with that. If it was strictly a landmarks issue, we could just provide support with them to go forward to get them actually put on the register. But I think it's maybe more of a parks issue. Trevor, we need to talk because the owner of the buildings has to agree before something can be put on the National Register. It's not like city landmarks where the owner does not have to agree. So that's something that maybe if Parks is meeting in August, they could talk about.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Any questions for Linda, anyone? Michael?
I have my hand
questions?
raised.
I'm sorry, yeah, sorry.
Linda, what's the timing on that?
I don't think it has any strict time limit, except it's in the ESCR process, right?
Okay, and the owner would be the city then?
Yeah, it's the city. In which agency? I'm not sure. Would it be Parks? Would it be EDC?
Okay.
But, we could talk about how to raise it. I mean, we in Landmarks can support if you choose to support them, we can support you. But I think it's basically got to come through Parks because of the agency that's involved.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Any other questions? Any other hands raised, Michael?
No.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to Parks. Trevor?
We are meeting tomorrow.
Yep.
Which should be a very interesting meeting. I'm going to talk to Michael so we could put some guardrails on the meeting so that we don't stay till midnight. but it will have a full update on ESCR as well as the interim flood protection. Those are two different items on there. But also one other note, the board did send out a letter to EDC and the city mayor's office requesting that they restart the coastal protection work in 2 bridges. We did get notification, mixing up my days, last week, Susan, this week, yesterday? Someday.
Within the last 5 days.
Within the last 5 days that they have agreed to restart the work. So it just shows you that sometimes those letters are very effective
and private conversations with EDC.
Okay, private conversations with EDC. Sometimes that helps too.
Thank you, Trevor. Okay, any questions for Trevor, anyone?
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to task force and subcommittees. So NYCHA hasn't met. Arts and Cultural hasn't met yet. Chinatown, we're not, it's on hiatus. So old business, any old business? Anyone have any old business? Any hands raised?
No.
Okay, so new business. I have some new business. So 2 things in new business. So first things first. The Borough of Manhattan, the chairpersons of all the community boards, we've been getting together and they've had conversation around doing something about systemic racism. And so the conversation at hand was addressed to me about how our boards have diversity in leadership? Our executive board looks very diverse. We have such a very diverse executive board. As you can see, like many of us are different faces, different places in our lives, social, economic, and also cultural. But when you look at up and coming leadership and our board, like this is a conversation that we should have. Like our secretaries, our vice chairs, who are we picking? Our board is full of Caucasian people. And I am saying this not just because I'm African American, but just to be aware of cultural diversity. And it's very difficult at times. I know that Michael wanted to have a conversation around it as well about diversity and just looking within ourselves. Are we doing a good job of reaching out to people who could be the next leaders that we put in place? Who could be people that we can, kind of cultivate, as they say, and kind of raise them up as the next leadership? I know we've gotten some new members, and that's great, but we also have to continue to look within ourselves to look for not just picking just the person that just steps up, also asking people, hey, are you interested? What is your goal? Like I've been making random phone calls to random young people that have stepped up on our board maybe within the past 2 years, and I've been asking them, what is your goal? What is your next, where do you think you see yourselves in the next 2 years? Do you think you would be interested in being a leader? These are the conversations you can have amongst your committee members and start to generate. Don't just pick someone that, oh, well, because they look like they know what they're doing, so I'm just going to choose you. Sometimes you have to ask people. People are not going to step up. As many of you know, many of you were asked. You were not people that came to the leadership and said, hey, I would like to be considered, or I would like to be next in line. Someone looked at you and said, I think that person might be great in a leadership position. And in doing that, we need to look not just at just the person that's saying they'd like to do it, but also at the person that may be playing the background. There may be a person that you haven't considered on your committees that would be interested in serving. Like you see, May said tonight, she was looking at Larissa, also looking at Thomas Rosa. That's really great. I want to encourage all of you to look within your committees and look at diversifying your committee. If you see that there's not diversity going on, what can we do to fix it? I mean, that's a conversation I think we need to have. And I think that I applaud the other community boards for wanting to engage in a conversation around it, because we've not talked about it at all. And Community Board 3, yes, we are very diverse. However, there is a lot of Caucasian people that sit in positions on our board. And we've not talked about that. And I know that it's like kind of peeling off the Band-Aid a little bit for some people, but I think we should have a conversation around it. And if you're interested in giving me dialogue on it and how we can improve on it or whatever, let me know, because the other community boards are going to start to generate the conversation, and they're forming a task force in which we've all been, well, not you all, but the leadership has been asked to sit on and be a part of the conversation as to what we can do to fix some of the racism that goes on even amongst our community boards. That's all I have to say. Thank you for new business. Anyone have anything to say? Any hands?
There's no hands, although I mean, I'm in full agreement. I think new blood is always good blood. So, but you said you had two things and that was only one.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think that was a part of
Okay.
it. I just wanted to say that the community board needs to generate conversation around it. And I think that we should also generate conversation around it as well.
And I sort of, just to piggyback on that, but slightly change the subject, because it might come up tomorrow. Tomorrow is the borough board meeting for the chairs.
Yes. Yes.
So I'll be attending on our behalf, as I usually do. And I believe there is a discussion on tomorrow's agenda about reopening of community board offices.
Yes. Yes.
I believe you're probably going to be on tomorrow.
So would you like me to mention something about that?
Sure. In the new business, go ahead, Susan.
So I have actually, so they're actually, I don't know why they're doing this, but they're presenting at both Borough Board and Borough Service Cabinet for some reason. So I had asked the staff members about a week ago how they felt about returning to the office, and was surprised that everybody wants to be in the office. I did not expect that. So two of us walked to the office, which is one situation. One person takes like a private transportation, and one person takes a subway. And of course, there's always concern when someone's on the subway that they're exposed to a lot. I think I mentioned a while ago that we got this 29-page guideline on reopening. I'm certainly hoping, and Michael, if you want to mention this, that we get some kind of support by someone paring this down and making something that's applicable to community boards, especially community boards with storefronts that don't have cleaning services, office cleaning, building cleaning services. So we have new air conditioning filters with the highest grade HEPA. I had to buy a new vacuum cleaner with a HEPA filter. We've had a cleaning person come in 3 times to kind of catch up and disinfect everything. So that's where we're at now. What we're looking at, we've ordered sneeze guards for the front desk, but they're back ordered for another month because everybody's ordering them. So I don't want Deidre to come in until those are installed on her front desk. And what we're thinking of doing is maybe having 2 people a day for Jim, who comes in on public transportation, come in non-rush hours so it's emptier, and do it in such a way that we can do it so we can work together. It's been really difficult to, one, not be able to work together. And we want to be able to have times where particularly Ed and I can work together and Jim and I can work together. So we have no deadline for doing any of this. The borough president's office said they would try and help the Manhattan boards pick up PPE from the city warehouse in South Village, Queens. So that's where we stand. It's, I think we're doing it kind of on a more informal basis and doing it as it is easy for us to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll definitely bring those questions up tomorrow in the conversation.
Thank you, Michael. And so I guess that's it. Unless anyone has anything else to say. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
And Why do I always forget the procedure? So we need to do a roll call vote again?
Oh, yes, sorry, roll call vote, my bad.
Okay, Alicia Lewis Coleman,
Yes.
Michael Marino,
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan. Lisa Kaplan, you're on mute. All right, I'm gonna come back to Lisa. Eric Diaz,
Yes.
Michelle Coopersmith, yes. Herman Hewitt, not here. Anisha Stephen,
Yes.
Mei Lee,
Yes.
Jackie Wong,
Yes.
Linda Jones,
Yes.
Alex Militano,
Yes.
Trevor Holland,
Yes.
Paul Rangel.
Yes.
Okay, I'm coming back to you, Lisa.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah, thank you all for another great executive meeting for the part that I was there for. Michael, thank you for attending Borough Board tomorrow morning. I'll be in transit coming back to the city.
No problem. Trevor, call me tomorrow. We'll discuss parks. Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Okay, good
Thanks.
night.
I just realized that you were community board, Michael.